A young woman's van sputtered and died. In the middle of nowhere, the only sign of help was a ramshackle garage up ahead. Inside, someone was working. Was this her last hope? Or just another dead end? She took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. I'm excited to share a new story with you. Let's get started. The engine coughed out a final sputtering complaint, then gave up the ghost. Kylie slumped against the steering wheel, a familiar wave of frustration washing over her. The old van was her lifeline, hauling tools for her landscaping gigs, delivering flowers after a hard day's work. Everything. Now it was as useful as a boulder in the middle of the road. She should have listened to her dad and gotten a new one ages ago, but his voice faded as a new thought pricked her. Wasn't there some garage on this route? An old-school place, the kind her practical tough-as-nails father would approve of? A half-remembered sign materialized ahead. Hank's Auto Repair. The building matched her memory. Faded paint, a scattering of greasy car parts piled haphazardly outside. Not a sleek chain place with shiny floors and fancy coffee machines. This was pure grease and grit. She sighed. It wouldn't be cheap, but it was her only hope. Pulling into the gravel, Lot felt like stepping back in time. A hulking figure emerged from the garage's shadowed interior, squinting into the afternoon sun. He was older. The lines on his face were etched as deep as the tool marks on his workbench. Definitely Hank. He didn't smile. He just grunted a single word. Problem? Kylie took a steadying breath. This wasn't some customer service rep she could charm. This guy looked like he chewed nails for breakfast. My van won't... Well, it won't start, she managed, feeling about 12 years old again when she'd skinned her knee and Dad didn't offer any sympathy, just a box of bandages and instructions to clean herself up. Hank didn't waste time on pleasantries. He stalked towards the van with the grim determination of a doctor heading into surgery. Kylie trailed behind, a mix of hope and dread swirling in her stomach. She'd never been one for cars. Her focus was flowers, soil, making things grow. This was about as far from her comfort zone as she could get. "Pop the hood!" Hank barked, his voice startling Kylie from her thoughts. He didn't look at her, he just gestured impatiently. Fumbling with the release, she felt a blush creep up her cheeks. This wasn't her element, and grumpy mechanics were not known for their patience. The hood lifted with a groan, revealing the engine's dusty heart. Hank leaned in, his movements purposeful, hands disappearing into the tangle of wires and belts. Each grunt or muttered curse sent a shiver of anxiety down Kylie's spine. After what felt like forever, Hank emerged, a frown etched on his face. "Dead battery. Probably some drain on the system, too," he grumbled, wiping his hands on an already filthy rag. Kylie's relief was tinged with fear. Car repairs were a black hole for her hard-earned cash. Before she could ask, Hank was already rattling off parts and figures, her mind scrambling to keep up. "Best I can do is get you running, but this van's seen better days," he concluded. His words hung heavy in the air. Better days, she echoed the phrase in her mind. There weren't many of those on the horizon. A looming rent increase, slow business, bills piling up. A fresh wave of frustration threatened to drown her, the kind born out of sheer exhaustion. It must have shown on her face, because Hank's next words surprised her. "Look," he began, his gruff voice softer than before. "It ain't my place to pry, but you seem..." He trailed off, searching for the right word. Overwhelmed. Kylie wasn't used to being seen so clearly. She usually armored herself in a smile, a can-do attitude that hid the cracks. But Hank, with those sharp, grease-stained eyes, saw straight through her. Suddenly, the tears she'd been stubbornly holding back threatened to spill over. "It's just," she began, her voice cracking slightly. "Everything seems to—" She gestured vaguely, unable to put the mess of bills, breakdowns, and disappointment into words. The van, the stupid van, was just the final straw. To her surprise, Hank didn't look annoyed or dismissive. He simply leaned against the fender, arms crossed. "Sometimes things pile up," he said, "like too much gunk in an old carburetor." He paused, the flicker of something akin to understanding in his eyes. "Can't fix everything at once. Gotta start with the basics." His words hit Kylie unexpectedly. Not sympathy, not pity, but a kind of blunt practicality that resonated with her own stubborn nature. Suddenly, the weight on her shoulders didn't feel quite so crushing. Maybe she couldn't fix everything, but she could fix this van, one step at a time. "So," she asked, her voice steadier now, "what are the basics? What do we do first?" Hank's lips twitched in the faintest hint of a smile. "First," he announced, "we get you a new battery. Then we see what else this old girl's got left in her." Kylie felt a flicker of hope. She managed a small smile. Things were tough, her van broken, her life a mess. But with Hank's help and her own stubbornness, maybe she could get back on track. The next 2 hours were a blur. Under Hank's grumbling directions, Kylie became a makeshift mechanic. She held flashlights, grabbed tools, and learned more about car parts than she ever imagined. They worked in sync, Hank diagnosing, Kylie fixing. The clangs and clicks marked each bit of progress. The work was hard, but it cleared her head. Her worries faded as she focused on the task, her muscles finding new strength. For once, her landscaping skills didn't matter. This was about fixing things the practical way, and it felt surprisingly good. Between the tinkering, awkward silences were filled with unexpected snippets of conversation. Hank, it turned out, was more than just a grumpy mechanic. He grumbled about changing car designs, the newfangled computerized gizmos that couldn't be fixed with a hammer and a good swear word. He reminisced about long-gone drag races, hinting at a wilder youth beneath the gruff facade. Kylie, in turn, shared snippets of her own life. The landscaping gig that barely paid the bills, her dream of starting a flower delivery side hustle. A surprising laugh boomed through the garage when she recounted a disastrous attempt to dye a client's poodle pink. "Flowers, huh? Never understood them myself," Hank muttered. But there was a hint of respect in his voice when she described her plans. He might live in a world of grease and metal, but he understood hard work, determination, and the relentless desire to build something with your own 2 hands. The new battery roared the van back to life. Kylie beamed. A mix of relief and pride washed over her. Hank, true to form, barely grinned, simply declaring, "Should get you where you need to go for now." Paying the bill, a painful amount, but surprisingly fair, Kylie felt an unexpected pang. She'd come to Hank's out of desperation, expecting a quick fix and a grumpy send-off. Instead, she'd gotten something different. "So," she began, unsure how to phrase it. "What about, the other stuff? That drain on the system? The bigger problems?" Her voice trailed off. She couldn't afford a complete overhaul, but the thought of the van dying again filled her with dread. Hank shrugged, wiping a grease-stained hand across his forehead. One thing at a time, like I said. You back next week, we can poke around some more. His face softened a fraction. Truth is, I got time. Work ain't exactly rushing out the door. And he paused, seeming to wrestle with the words. Well, you ain't so bad with a wrench. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever likely get from Hank. She felt a warmth spread through her, not just from the physical exertion, but from the unexpected flicker of approval. Next week, Kylie echoed, hope sparking in her eyes. I can do that, can I? Maybe bring some coffee? A hint of a real smile creased Hank's weathered face. Better be strong, he grumbled. Sarah left Hank's garage feeling lighter. Her problems, the rent, the bills, her business, were still there, but they didn't seem so impossible anymore. Today she hadn't just fixed her van. She'd found something strong inside herself. She'd also made a connection with Hank, the grumpiest mechanic in town. Maybe she didn't have a fancy plan, but she had a direction, and that was a start. 1 week turned into 2, then 3. Tuesdays at Hank's became part of Kylie's routine, a haven of grease and old tools in her busy life. She stopped by after her landscaping jobs, bringing greasy takeout and strong coffee. The radio would play old rock songs that Hank pretended to hate, but secretly liked. They worked well together. Kylie's sharp eyes and out-of-the-box thinking sometimes surprised even Hank. He'd never admit it, but she saw a flicker of respect in his eyes now and then. In turn, Kylie became his apprentice, learning how to tell what was wrong with a car just by listening to the engine. The van got better under their care. It wasn't perfect, still showing its age and hard work, but it was dependable. That was kind of like Kylie, a bit messy, still figuring things out, but getting stronger. Then, one afternoon, a new voice cut through the usual garage noises. Well, I'll be, a man in a fancy suit standing next to a shiny, expensive car said. Hank came out, his usual scowl replaced with a wary look. Don Carter, he grunted. Kylie slid out from under the van, wiping her dirty hands on her overalls. Don Carter, it turned out, was Hank's enemy, a smooth-talking guy who owned a bunch of fancy car shops. He wanted to buy Hank's garage, but Hank wouldn't sell. The air crackled as he said no. Carter looked Kylie up and down, her greasy coveralls and wild ponytail. I see you've got a new helper, he said with a mean little smile. Things must be getting desperate. Hank's words hurt, not because they were true, but because he didn't see what they had. Kylie forced herself to stand straight. I'm just lending a hand, she said, her voice clear. And I'm pretty good with cars. Carter's fake smile faded as a look of real pride crossed Hank's face. Right then. Amongst the tools and machines, Kylie knew she belonged, no matter what guys like Carter thought. Don Carter finally left, his promises of easy money echoing hollowly in the dusty garage. Hank shook his head, muttering about the relentless encroachment of chain stores and smooth-talking businessmen. Kylie, seeing the weariness in his aging eyes, felt a surge of protectiveness for this stubborn old mechanic. You okay? She ventured, her question about more than just that confrontation. Hank grunted. Don't like change, that's all. Used to be, you fixed a car, you gave an honest price, and folks knew they got what they paid for. He gestured vaguely at the world beyond the garage doors, where sleek shops promised quick fixes and instant gratification. But you do good work, Kylie offered, the conviction in her voice startling even herself. "They might be flashy, but they don't know cars the way you do." Hank looked at her, then a long, considering look. "Kid," he rumbled finally, "sometimes I forget you got a good head on your shoulders for someone who likes flowers." It was the highest praise Kylie could imagine from Hank. They spent the rest of the afternoon rebuilding a carburetor, the silence filled with a comfortable understanding. Before leaving, she made a decision. The next week, as Hank tinkered under the hood of a classic Mustang, Kylie approached, carrying not greasy takeout, but a worn notebook. "Got an idea," she said, flipping the notebook open to reveal crude sketches and scribbled calculations. It was her flower delivery van dream, but transformed. Her design incorporated a fold-down workbench and storage shelves, maximizing space for deliveries and minor roadside repairs. She'd even found junkyard parts that would work with a little ingenuity and elbow grease. Hank looked from the sketches to Kylie, his expression unreadable. "What the hell is this?" he barked. "A flower shop on wheels," she said with a determined smile. "Something like that, but more roadside assistance with a green touch, oil changes, quick fixes, and flower deliveries after the car's back on the road. For people who care about both practical stuff and making the world a bit prettier." A slow grin spread across Hank's face. It was a transformation as unexpected as a cactus bursting into bloom in the dead of winter. "You know," he said, "that might just be crazy enough to work. Things wouldn't be easy. Long days, sore muscles, and more problems than they could guess. Kylie's flowers might have a bit of grease on them, and Hank's waiting room would get a few new plants." But as they stood there, tools laid out around them, the sun getting low, they both felt it. A chance. It wasn't about fancy shops or big promises. It was about hard work, fixing problems, and the quiet pride that came with knowing you built something real.